Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're taking the regulatory pulse of the body art industry. We're going to explore exactly how high-level clinical health regulations translate into the gritty, day-to-day safety protocols of a body art studio. Specifically, we're zeroing in on the absolute foundational element of it all, hand hygiene and glove protocols. Because, as the data is about to show us, most infection control failures, they actually aren't about having bad equipment, they're entirely behavioral. So let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The studio infection dynamic. 2. Adapting WHO for studios. 3. Glove material regulatory standards. 4. The double glove indicator system. And finally, 5. The doffing danger zone.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the studio infection dynamic.
Now, think about this contrast for a second. In a hospital, hand hygiene is mostly about protecting the patient lying in bed from catching a secondary bug from the facility. But in a body art studio, that dynamic completely flips on its head. An artist's hands are constantly darting around between broken skin, the buzzing machine, ink caps, the workstation. Literally every single transition is a potential cross-contamination risk. Your gloved hand is your primary protective barrier, right? But dangerously, it's also your primary vector for disease if that barrier gets broken.
And honestly, this next stat is just wild. In a 2015 study of tattoo studios over in Denmark, a staggering 70% of artists failed to change their gloves correctly after touching non-sterile surfaces mid-procedure. Just 30% got it right. It completely aligns with what outbreak investigations keep telling us. Behavioral blind spots, like inadequate glove discipline, are by far our biggest recurring threats.
Moving right along to Section 2, Adapting WHO for studios. You might be familiar with the World Health Organization's famous 5 Moments framework. Well, here's exactly how those top-tier healthcare standards map directly to a piercing or tattoo session. Moment 1 is performing hand hygiene before you ever gloves for that initial skin contact. Moment 2 is right before handling your sterilized needles or jewelry. Moment 3 is all about exposure. You have to change gloves after any contact with blood or plasma. Moment 4 is doing hand hygiene immediately after removing your gloves. And Moment 5? That's hygiene after touching the client's surroundings, which in a studio means your machine, your ink bottles, your tray.
But here is where most studios completely drop the ball. It's the blurred line between Moment 2 and Moment 5. Look, if you do flawless hand hygiene before starting, that's Moment 2. But then you reach over to, skip a song on Spotify or open a drawer mid-tattoo without changing those gloves, you just violated Moment 5. Every single transition from a non-sterile surface back to an open wound is a brand new hand hygiene event. You simply can't write out an entire session on just one pair of gloves. No way.
Okay, Section 3, Glove Material Regulatory Standards.
Let's talk materials, because not all barriers are created equal. Nitrile? That's your gold standard right there. Excellent barrier integrity, solid motor control, and very low allergy risk. Now, latex offers amazing tactile feedback, sure, but it carries an 8 to 17% allergy prevalence rate. That's exactly why clinical settings are actively phasing it out. Neoprene is a fantastic premium choice if you got the budget for it, but focus on vinyl at the bottom of the list. We have to explicitly warn against using this. It has documented leakage rates of 12 to 61% after use. Vinyl is strictly for cleaning the shop, never, ever for procedures.
To really grasp these material regulations, we have to look at AQL, or Acceptable Quality Level. Essentially, it's the strict testing limit for barrier integrity. Surgical-grade gloves require a highly rigorous AQL of 1.0 to 1.5. Standard exam gloves sit at 2.5. So, for tattooing, a 2.5 nitrile glove is usually totally fine. But for the higher perforation risks involved in piercing, you really want to be looking at surgical grade or employing a double glove system.
And consider this a major regulatory alert. Powdered gloves are entirely out. The FDA actually banned powdered gloves for surgical and exam use way back in 2017, and the exact same rationale applies to body art. The powder used inside these gloves can carry proteins into the air, abrade your client's skin, and cause dangerous granuloma formations if that powder gets deposited into an open wound. Just do yourself a favor and stay away from them completely.
All right, moving to Section 4, the double glove indicator system.
When we look at the data on glove perforations, it's pretty eye-opening. A 2012 Cochrane review found a massive 70% reduction in blood-borne pathogen exposure just by double gloving, compared to single gloving. 70%! That is a gigantic safety margin increase for an incredibly simple behavioral tweak.
So how do we put this into practice? We use a visual indicator system, and it is elegantly simple. Step 1, you don a brightly colored inner glove, think bright green or blue. Step 2, put a standard outer glove right over it. Step 3, if a hollow piercing needle micro-punctures your outer glove, a bright colored spot instantly shines through the hole from the inner layer. Without this setup, a micro tear can go unnoticed for the entire procedure. But with this, if you see green, you stop, change the outer glove, and resume safely.
You might be wondering, is this overkill? Definitely not. This system is essential for all piercing procedures, not just the complex ones, and it only adds about 10 to 15 pence extra per client. A tiny, tiny price compared to a bloodborne pathogen exposure, right? For tattoo artists, grinding out long, multi-hour sessions, you can use this brilliantly. Just keep the inner glove on and swap the outer glove every 60 to 90 minutes. It gives you maximum protection with minimal hassle across a full-day sleeve session. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the doffing danger zone.
This is where things get genuinely scary. 53% of healthcare workers accidentally contaminate their own bare hands during glove removal. Think about that for a second. You could have the most flawless double glove protocol in the world, but if you take them off wrong at the end, you've just transferred all that biomatter directly onto your own skin. Safe doffing is a specific skill. You have to actively train your muscle memory for this. It's 4 basic steps. First, pinch the outside near the wrist. Second, peel downwards, turning it inside out as it comes off. Third, hold that dirty, removed glove in your other gloved hand. Finally, slide your bare fingers carefully under the wrist of the remaining glove and peel it inside out, swallowing the first glove entirely. Whatever you do, never pull them off by the fingertips. That is a guaranteed contamination transfer.
Now, to keep your ultimate base barrier, your actual skin, intact, here are some rapid-fire regulatory rules for hand care. Never use petroleum-based or heavily fragranced moisturizers right before gloving up. It literally chemically degrades the nitrile material. Save the lotion for the end of the workday. And if you start developing persistent cracking or redness, don't just brush it off as dry skin. See an occupational dermatologist. It could actually indicate a type 4 allergy to the chemical accelerators used in manufacturing your gloves.
As we wrap up this explainer on the regulatory pulse of studio hygiene, the data paints a really clear picture. Most infection control failures are behavioral, they're not equipment-based. Truly adopting the WHO 5 moments, utilizing an indicator system, and mastering safe doffing, that is what elevates your practice from basic standards to clinical excellence. So take a look at your own workstation today and ask yourself, is your studio treating hand hygiene as a mere regulatory checkbox, or is it truly your ultimate barrier?